Hey, man,
Hey,
you got that bass lick down really well. I really like the way that sounds when you do that. I don't know how you do the basic guitar at the same time, but it's fantastic.
modern world.
Yeah. Well,
Modern world.
welcome everybody. The blazing, 17 of you that listened last time. It kept going up and down, by the way. I look at it one week, one day, and it was this many subscribers or viewers, and then I go the next day, and it was down like 7. So I do not understand how they count people, and
Right.
not that one. Oh yeah, okay. Like and subscribe. Dave's got his hands on the controls now, so now this is getting really dangerous. The two of us are going to compete to put stuff up.
Now that I learned something this week.
He's learning. Um, Art Johnston will be joining us in a bit when he gets on, and then we'll go from there. But right now, let's dive in. It's like drinking from a fire hose with the amount of news that's been coming out lately, mostly on the national side. But we'll start by talking about Duluth. And the first thing I'm going to bring up is the topic we talked about last week, which is the Duluth Skyway. And I got a little more information about this. They did have a city council meeting. They talked about this. They've authorized, or they're proposing to authorize, and I think they have to vote on it next time, about having somebody come in and looking at the Duluth Skyway system. They did this already in 2022. There's a link I'm going to put in the chat afterwards where they went through this already, but they're going to do this again. I contacted Eric Forsman to find out, is there something behind this besides just coming up with it on our own? Was there a firm that approached them, some group that, I talked about last week, which was in Minneapolis? And what he said was, no, this was all based on people giving feedback saying the Skywalk's not as good as it should be, or it could use some improvements, and we should look at it. So it's not ever a bad thing to do it. The only thing that sticks in my craw is that they said if it goes over $50,000, then it has to get the city council approval. So $50,000 in 6 months to study this. It just seems like something that doesn't take that much money and certainly not that much time. And
Right.
by the way, talking about 6 months, that's apparently an aggressive schedule. So I don't know what they're thinking is going to be involved with this, but my goodness, that's a lot of time and money to scan the system and see what's needed.
So
What do you think, Dave?
are you saying that under 50,000 they don't need to even really bring it to anybody's attention?
I think they're given a budget of up to 50,000, and then after that they have to get approval. But I don't think that's solidified yet. I don't think it solidifies until the next meeting.
Well, what I took from the meeting was that they're just studying it for now.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what this after the study comes out and see what they recommend. That's when the problems are going to start. Is they're going to you know do something really crazy to fix a problem that doesn't need to be fixed, basically.
All right. Hey, we got Art. Art, you there?
Sort of have him.
Kind of have him. His mic's not
His mic's
unmuted. I'm
not
gonna
on. His
take him.
camera's not on. So
Hang on, I'm gonna wait till I see him on the screen before I bring him in. So, but I appreciated Eric Forsman getting back to me. Oh, there's Art. Hey, Art.
Hey, how's it going, Sean and David? Hey, I made it
Good.
here, so it's great to see
All
you guys.
right.
How's it been going? I've been on for a while. Thought I'd drop on in and see if I can contribute something to help Duluth work better.
Absolutely.
oh yeah.
Well, we were just talking a little bit about this Skyway system and how the Duluth City Council is going to take a look at it. I did want to mention that I contacted Eric Forsman about this because he's a co-author on it, and he got back to me right away, which I appreciated, because when you ask a city council member some questions, you want them to get back to you. So he came and clarified. I was telling Dave that there is no outside group that's pushing this. It's something that he's brought up because he's had people come and bring up the Skyway system to him. And we had this study in 2022, and I don't think anything came of it. So it's something that it's not a bad thing to look at stuff. It's just amount of money and time that it's going to take to look at it, is just to come up with an assessment before they talk about actually doing something. Like Dave was saying, it's up to maybe $50,000 to look at this. And then from that, I don't know how much it's going to cost after that.
So what exactly are they going to do here? Is it just an infrastructure thing? Is it a homeless people thing, or what?
They're what they're going to do. Is the Skyway system viable? Is it something that we want to? Where are the downfalls of it? Where are some things that could use improvement? What's good about it? They're doing a whole assessment of the Skyway system itself. So, I wanted to bring up something else when it comes to Duluth. I was looking at the Duluth News Tribune, and I was looking at a letter to the editor. I'm not going to mention who it was, but one of the letters said, I'll quote this: "The very first federal government agency chosen to be immediately and totally shut down by our new presidential administration is our one and only agency that feeds, shelters, and medicates the least fortunate of our world. I'm sure it has had its share of faults, wastes, and mismanagement. Heaven knows I certainly do, but the overwhelming majority of its tiny 0.07% of federal budget outlay has been going to mercy, feeding, sheltering, and medicating those born much less likely than you or me." And having read that, my thought is that sounds like a great thing for a charity to do. I don't know why it's a mandated thing for the US government to do something like that. But by all means, if this person really likes this and it's a good topic, they should start a charity or contribute to a charity that will do these kind of things. It is a good thing to do, not at the point of a gun at the taxpayer's expense, though. Dave, what do you think?
Well, I think as soon as they're getting into so much waste that's what the problem is obviously they're taking a sledgehammer approach to it, but if you stop it and then figure out what actually needs to be done properly and then set it up so it gets done properly, then that's the main thing. But right now you stop all of it, you stop all the waste, save all the money, and then slowly go forward instead of so this is definitely a good thing from Trump and Elon. So
what do you think, Art?
On everything that happens, there's going to be some negatives. I mean, what we want to do is try not to actually throw the actual baby out with the bathwater. But I don't think that's happening here. Elon Musk has found a lot of waste. If we could save $1 billion, if it's even if it's whatever she said, 0.1% of the budget or something. Well, every $1 billion, that's going to add up really fast, and we have to look at these things. And things that I've heard about it is there's a lot of things like on transgender stuff that's going on, a lot of stuff on racism. They're promoting racism, and I don't really think that should be a function of the government, and I don't think anybody else does. Will there be some things? Did they help somebody? Maybe they did. I don't know. I think kind of like you, Sean, is this really a government function? If somebody is starving, obviously, around the world, if there's an earthquake, a tsunami, we want to help out. But this stuff has been going on. When was that put in? Back in, wasn't it? It was the Lyndon Johnson days to help out.
It was John F. Kennedy.
Oh, it's even further back.
Yeah.
And maybe now has that outlived its purpose now.
Right.
And is that the best way to help people? By even if they are giving them food, which I would like to look at the data on that. Should they be promoting business opportunities? Are they giving these funds to governments that are not squandering it or wasting it? I think those are questions that we have to ask, and I say, please keep asking because I want to know that. I want to know the answers to some of that stuff, and we don't know right now. This whole place is it's pretty black. We don't know where all this money goes, and every time I hear billions of dollars going to the UN, billions of dollars to go to X, Y, and Z, what is it actually being used for? Is it actually even helping anybody?
Right, especially when we're in a budget deficit. We don't have the funds to cover our budget. How are we giving out money to other countries to handle theirs? There's some frivolous things, and there's some, objectively very good things. I mean, feeding people that are starving is a good thing. Again, not a government service. It should be a private charity service. This is where the Catholic charities and religious charities or non-religious charities can pipe in. There's plenty of people with money around here. It should just not be mandated to the American people to have to do it. I don't think.
Yeah, the
And
only
unfortunately,
I guess I'd say the only exception to that would be an actual emergency, like a hurricane or tsunami. You get a little bit of money there to get everybody back on their feet to help out because hey, they have no, say they kind of don't have any water, don't have any food at all. But
yeah,
I would question whether that's the situation in probably 90% of these funds.
yeah. So kind of leading that into it too is there's a Duluth News Tribune editorial by Tony Lanzillo, and it's a pretty shocking read. He's talking about, we feel as though we are witnessing the cancerous growth of white nationalism, corporate greed, environmental destruction, toxic masculinity, and refusal to accept critical thinking or a woke perspective. I can't believe they ran this as an editorial. I mean, sure, it's the guy's opinion, and that's fine, but
Are
it's
you sure you were
he's
on
out
the
there.
comics page? Where the
I don't know any guy that talks about toxic masculinity. I don't know. I got a real problem with that guy. I don't know where he's thinking.
Is this a local guy, do you think, or is he some?
Yeah, he's a local climate guy. He's
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 into the
contributed.
climate too, huh? He's
Oh
into
yeah,
everything.
everything's got to do with the climate. Yeah,
100% predictable. Right?
it is a fear mongering. Everything's horrible. Please be very scared about stuff. Kind of editorial. It struck me when I read it. I was kind of laughing when I read it too.
Well, that came out, during the election, of course, that Trump won quite handily on electoral college. They did that against him. I mean, every other thing they threw out against him, and he was calling them a Nazis. That was the typical thing. And of course, a white supremacist and a racist, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
People
yeah.
just don't buy that anymore because it's not true. There isn't any, these people are not racist. I'm not a toxic masculine male. I'm not a, whatever it was, a white supremacist. And these are just name calling. And if somebody on the right or somebody like us called somebody those names, I mean, people would be appalled and shut us down. And you can't say anything bad, like say we called people that believe in, being actually a actual two-spirit. In case you want to get to that, two-spirits is a bunch of nonsense. If we said that, I mean, that somebody would criticize us. And Chuck Frederick certainly would not put us on the editorial page of the Duluth News Tribune. But here, these guys put that on, and it's like, Chuck Frederick doesn't care.
Yeah, right.
I guess he must believe it too, I guess.
The thing that cracks me up about toxic max, especially if somebody called me that, which I don't know if anybody would, but I look at my dad and I look at my grandfather and I look at my great grandfather. I am a panty waist compared to these guys. I mean, those guys were men. It wasn't toxic. It was just masculine. And, we don't even hold a candle. I don't know guys that are like that anymore. They're hard men. So it's kind of funny to think that this is what they're holding up as being toxic.
Well, just a minute, Sean. Now I see you and I see David sitting there. And boy, you guys look pretty toxic.
Yeah.
I mean, I could just see that, boy. It's like, boy, your horns are coming out of your head, and
Oh yeah.
else, and, boy, yeah. I mean, you guys should be taking a look at your pictures.
Yeah, we are the symbol of it.
I've heard a lot of complaining from the Democrat Party about there's no masculine man in the Democratic Party anymore. And, they keep saying that they almost talk like that's a good thing. But
yeah, well, Tim Walz is their prototypical man. That's who they think a man should be like, is Tim Walz. Yeah. Which we'll be getting to Tim, believe that, in just a little bit.
I'll just say one more thing. I'll say one more thing, Sean, on this too, before we go to the next topic. Is I think on the last time I was on here, I said, "Well, I became a Republican." I was looking at the Supreme Court justice hearings, the Kavanaugh hearings, and my thing, I would look at that again. Those were just absolutely appalling hearings. Men were just torn down. I look at those, and I feel that any man who is a Democrat right now, looking at that kind of stuff, the way that all males were bashed, I can't believe any males are part of the Democratic Party. I really can't,
Right.
because they treat us like garbage, and if we treated women that way, we should be treated like garbage. But boy, it's like, we're not going to do that. But hey, the Democrats can bash us males all they want,
Yeah.
and everybody says, "Oh, is this let's sing Kumbaya?"
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with any of the women on our side. They're more masculine than men on the Democrat side. I know a few that could outshoot me. I know that for sure.
Well, I certainly
Uh,
know most of the women that I know on our side that have a half a brain, and that's that I think that counts for both males and females. It's a good trait to have.
it is definitely. Well, let's see. I'm going to talk about, Art, you're on here and you had something you wanted to talk about with Two Spirits thing. And this is kind of your thing because I haven't read it. You sent me a link to it, but I'm pretty bad about being able to get to read stuff for the next couple of weeks. So do you want to, let's go over what you want to talk about with that.
Okay, well, I'll read some of this stuff here, and if I'm going too long, mute me or something. But anyway, this is from the website Quillette. It's Australia. Their motto is "Free Thought Lives." They are the ones that originally came out. They were kind of one of the original dark web websites where people were able to speak. They came out a lot about against the trans stuff. There's a lot of the whole woke thing they came out on. This has been going on here. The Quillette website, I'd recommend you look at it. It's a kind of funny website. It's pretty well written and stuff. But anyway, they had an article on it goes into the whole Two Spirit thing, and anyways, the actual University of Alberta, I'll quote some of this stuff. Of course, this is the same as in other universities in Canada and the U.S. Have classes too, and I'm quoting: commit to concrete action that disrupt the perpetuation of settler colonialism, articulate pathways that embrace decolonial futures. The students are asked to probe their consciences for actions that, quote, perpetuate settler colonial futurity, to engage in the act of reclaiming history through nurturing relationships with the living realities of Indigenous sovereignties. Okay, Canada University have mandatory classes like this, which usually this I'm quoting the article now, kind of quoting a little bit roughly, but which usually consists of little more than a babbling white woman professor obsessed with their own settler positionality and the ideological crimes of colonialism to be parroted in the classroom. The insistence that Indigenous people have mythical, quote, ways of knowing that supersede the laws of science, or that the possession of Indigenous DNA allows members of the LGBT community to access a rarefied and literally undefinable designation known as, here it is, Two Spirit. That's with a capital T and a capital S. I'll go on here, Sean. I think you probably know this lady, and she happens to be a House representative from East Duluth, Alicia Kozlowski. Quoting her website: I use they, them pronouns. A voice like mine has never represented District 8B or Minnesota. I'm the first Ojibwe. Latina, not Latina, Latina, I'm reading this right. A Latina person to serve Duluth and the first non-binary Two-Spirit person to be elected to the Minnesota legislature. A leader of a powerful bloc of Black, Brown, and Indigenous members and co-founders of the Minnesota Queer Caucus. Okay, what is Two-Spirit? And let me go a little bit here, Sean. I'm almost done. Okay, just to show how I'm Can I go on, Sean? Am I going on?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I haven't removed you yet.
Okay. Canada's government has recently announced, quote, Canada's first federal. Okay, now listen close. Canada's first federal 2SLGBTQI plus action plan, building our future with pride, unquote, which is described as a, quote, whole of the government approach to achieve a future where everyone in Canada is truly free to be who they are and love who they love. The aim is to convince Canadians to adopt the term Okay, remember, I'm going to ask you if you remember this. 2SLGBTQI plus in place of LGBT. Okay, what are the first two letters?
No.
2S. This is according to the Canadian government means two-spirit. Okay, I'm almost done, Sean. Okay, two-spirit is quite literally beyond the powers of Western language. I'm quoting this from the website. Beyond the powers of Western language and epistemology. The act of proclaiming oneself two-spirit would be a statement about one's gender or sexual orientation or both or neither. Or 2S can be a statement about one's politics, spirituality, or simply one's desire to present as anti-colonial. There are only two non-negotiable elements of a two-spirit individual. Now remember, Sean, I don't know if you can fit this. You have to be indigenous, and two,
Of
you are
course.
engaged in a decolonizing act of resistance.
Of course. Yes.
Sorry, I just sort of went
it-
on too long there, but you know, it's really appalling to me that we have a representative who does not believe in science at all. I mean, this is a bunch of mumbo jumbo stuff. And just because you're a Native American, Native Americans were treated extremely horribly in our country, but that doesn't make somebody able to make up a bunch of hogwash like two-spirit. You have to be an indigenous person because your DNA is right. Us, the nasty white male, we don't understand what that two-spirit is. Yes, I don't understand what two-spirit is because it's a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, it's gatekeeping on what special people are, and that's just not right. And that's bothered me for many years. It's like, oh, yeah, well, you're Indian, you should be able to track. Why? If you grew up like that, sure, but anybody should be able to do that. Not just because you're a certain race or something. There is no clairvoyance because you're a certain race. But you know, if you
I
go ahead.
don't want to. It's somehow. I mean, you hit all this Native American stuff that they're, mothers of the earth, and they're great environmentalists, and they have 13 levels of spirituality and blah 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 blah. And this is just all nonsense. I mean, they're
I know a
people like
lot of
you
people.
and they've been treated poor, but the way to help out Native Americans isn't make a bunch of mumbo jumbo up. That's just totally nonsense. How is that going to help out anybody?
Right. I know a lot of Native Americans. I spent a lot of time around there, and you know what? The crazy thing is, they're just like everybody else. You got your crazies, you got your great people, you got your drunks, you got your serious people. It's the same. Anytime you get down to it, you get the same people everywhere. There's good, there's bad, there's hucksters, and that's kind of what this is. It's trying to play on something so that you can make yourself special, so that you can make yourself feel like you're something more than you are. And it's unfortunate that people have to do that, as opposed to being known for their achievements. They're being known for what they are, and that's it. And then they try to take all the credit for it. I don't try to take credit for anything that anybody in my race has done because I didn't do it. So I don't know why these people think they should.
Well, I thought it was funny to say.
The whole thing
Go ahead,
is,
Dave.
look, I'm a bigger victim than you are. You should listen to me because I'm a bigger victim. I can prove I'm a bigger victim because I've got this many letters behind my name.
Right.
And, you should listen to me. I am a victim.
Right.
And
that's basically it.
It's basically it, and that's why the News Tribune endorsed her, because she's a bigger victim than any of her opponents over the. They always take the biggest victim. So
I always wondered about that. Do you think they endorse him because of that, or because they're so afraid of what would happen if they didn't? Or do you think it maybe is a combination of both? I mean, do they honestly think
masculine there? So I think it's a part of it.
No, honestly, do they think she's the best candidate? Given what she did her first 2 years, they endorsed her without mentioning anything she did, just saying that she has the potential to do. She deserves a chance to do more. And I was wondering, that's a kind of a strange endorsement for a candidate that's already been in office for a couple of years. So do they really believe that? Maybe they do. Are they scared if they don't? That could be in Duluth, or it could just be a combination of both.
Well, it's so hard to believe the Duluth News Tribune. I'm always called the worst newspaper in the country. And it's like, how do they come up with anything they say? Is it really, it's journalism is certainly isn't a good example of journalism in the bottom.
Journalism.
Oh, I was going to say about that too. Sorry, I didn't mean to say anything bad about the Duluth News Tribune, haha. But anyway,
You can say anything you want.
anyway, I thought it was interesting, this article or the website, where it's quoting this college thing and said that this is being taught by a white professor, a white female professor. We think colleges, professors, with all these numbers behind letters behind your name, David, you're supposed to somehow be. I didn't think you were supposed to be a victim. I thought you were supposed to be smarter than the rest of us. And, hey, you go to college and you learn stuff. Well, I guess you learn how to make up a bunch of mumbo jumbo word salad. I mean, the stuff I read to you, it was just word salad. I mean, it said nothing. You can make up whatever you want that I read, and it's like, how is that scholarship? I mean,
Well, see, you don't have the language to understand it. You can't even articulate it because you just don't have the concept of how broad this is. Your puny little mind can't understand this. I'm sorry, and mine can't either. But I accept it.
Well, it's like, I think it's important, your program here, Sawn and David. I think we can't be afraid to talk about this. I'd like to think that people they know that their representative is going along and talking about two-spirit and I have the right DNA, blah, 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 which means I don't, of course, somehow.
Right. Yeah, that implies a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, talk about racism and talk about mumbo jumbo. And those are people running our country, man. It's kind of scary because we do need rational thought. It's really the Democrats have. They're about as far from rationality as I can think about on anything. They have no rationality when it comes to science, and they don't understand biology, obviously. If you're going to call yourself a two-spirit.
Whoa. You have to trust science. Science is done. It's already figured out. You don't understand this. If you don't trust science.
That's right. I don't have a PhD.
Right.
You read a PhD, you just need a consensus.
But I'd like to think people in Duluth are going to look at this and say, wait a minute, these guys aren't that bad. This really is a bunch of nonsense, and let's do better next time around.
I think it's going to be really interesting this next election without the USAID pumping money into different places. I don't know if you've noticed this, and I don't want to get too far ahead, but USAID was funding a lot of propaganda, both externally and internally in the United States. And when they got shut down, they had a protest outside their building, kind of a protest. It was people were coming out and they were trying to protest. There was about 20 people there. They just don't have the funds. Now they've lost the funding to actually have the people show up to do the protests, and that's what they used to do. So it's kind of funny. So it's going to be an interesting election, I think, next year without that propaganda being pumped into the system. What actually will happen? I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, just expanding that a little bit, when Trump froze the money to the ICC, the court, that's blaming Israel for everything. And they're wondering, well, gee, maybe we won't be able to pay all these people. Well, why on earth were we giving them any money in the first place? I mean, I cannot believe that we gave money to these people, if it's U.S. aid or if it's the ICC or the UN. I mean, this money has been completely squandered, and this is my money. It really makes me mad that my money is going to support, the ICC, a bunch of racist people, a bunch of anti-Semitic. That is just horrible, and I don't want my money to go there.
Here's the problem too, and I've talked to Dave about this in the past. When it's gotten to the point where I don't contribute to charities because I already have to pay my taxes so much, and they're already funding a lot of these things. But when you take away the people's ability to give to a charity, when I give to a charity, that means I'm giving my money voluntarily to something I believe in, and it makes them be able to do their job, and it makes me feel good about it. It's kind of an altruistic thing. It's kind of a selfish thing, but it makes me feel good that I've given to a charity and the charity's doing some good. When you strip that away and bring it back to the government, two things happen. Number one is you have no choice but to give to that charity. And number two, you have no choice in which charity is given to. So you're now contributing to funds to people that you don't even agree with and actually will fight against. And then you have to spend more money to fight against the people you're already funding to do whatever they're going to do. And it's best, that's best imaged in something I saw with these missiles. Do you remember when Iran threw some missiles at Israel? There's pictures of those two coming together where the missiles that Iran is firing is coming into contact with the missiles Israel is firing. And it says on there, my tax dollars. And the other side says, somehow also my tax dollars. And that's what's happening. So I think it's a horrible thing to do this, where we should have charities and people contributing to what they believe in, and then being able to decide how much they can give. And if they can't give, they don't. And if they can, they do.
I think
I think
that's
you
the
did a
biggest
really
point
good
that
point.
you are bringing up is, and people are forgetting that the federal government money is our tax money. The state money they're spending is our tax money that we paid. The city is our tax money. It's all our money that we forcefully have been given to them. And I think people forget that. Well, because they go, well, it's from the feds.
Yep.
Yeah, that's still your money.
Yep.
I think
Exactly.
people are forgetting that.
I think you're right. They don't conceptualize it because it's just been gone. So then it comes around, and that's like when Biden was saying he was doing this or doing that. He's not doing anything. He's saying, congratulations, I'm taking your money and I'm going to give it to these people and take the credit for it.
I mean, you're absolutely right, Sean. I mean, a lot of these NGOs now, I guess that's what they're called, charities and NGOs, they get an enormous amount of money from the government. And I don't support hardly any of these NGOs at all. And an example, which I think we talked about here a couple of times ago, I'll bring it up again, is Feeding Our Future. $250 million, and they're still prosecuting people. It's amazing they found them. I can't believe anybody in Minnesota actually uncovered any graft and corruption. Thank goodness they did. But boy, that's an example. I mean, that's my tax money going that somebody gave them. Of course, remember that was the COVID money. It was Feeding Our Future. They're supposed to have been fed, what was it, 1.5 million meals to children?
Nope.
And
Yeah, supposed to.
One meal was done. They went and bought their Rolls Royces and fancy houses. It is just disgusting. And the government does not, they just throw money out there as fast as they can. Take shovels and throw it out the window and hope they can get votes.
All right, Dave, you got the last word on this before I move on. Anything else?
Well, if you look at the notes from the city council, you'll see that they're reapportioning money to places that they didn't pay enough. So they'll pay some money, and then now they're coming back. This last thing, there's 3 or 4 different organizations that they're paying more than they originally suspected. So, is that part of the fraud? Is that part of the mismanagement? Is it intentional? Well, we already paid them $50,000. We have to pay them another $23,000. You go through the notes, it's all that. So are we being scammed? Are they lying to us about what the actual amount of something is? Because they just keep adding to the payments to these places.
Right. That's a good question. All right, I'm going to move on because I want to. Wow, we're already like half hour into this thing.
You can talk faster, Sean.
Yeah. We got all the time in the world. We could go on all night if we have to.
I gotta go. I gotta go at 8 here. Just the warning.
Okay, well, we can go. Dave and I can go all night.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the bills that have been introduced now by our Duluth representatives, because I want to highlight. A lot of times, and I've talked about this before, when I was on the campaign trail, I would talk about some of the bills that the representatives have introduced, and people had no idea. So I'm trying to keep up with them and trying to highlight. There's some that I just ignore because they're pretty minor. One of those bills is HF 1507, and that is Great Lakes Aquarium capital improvements, funding provided, money appropriated, a little over $1 million from the general fund. So there's another $1 million going to the Great Lakes Aquarium. I don't know, but I have a feeling that this just is not making any money, and we just keep feeding it money like some sort of monster. Have you ever heard of this thing breaking even? And I don't know. So I'm saying this not knowing if this thing is, yay, we're plenty of cash, but why are we giving it $1 million if it is?
Why are we building things that aren't self-sustaining?
Yeah.
We have to continue to throw money at.
Mm-hmm.
If it needs just a mere $1 million, then why are we keeping it open?
And this is just to do improvements. This isn't the general care and
Yeah.
feeding of the place. I don't see the benefit of the Great Lakes Aquarium compared to the money that we're talking about. Going into this knowing that we're facing a $5 billion budget shortfall coming up pretty soon. Any thoughts on that, Art? Or should I move on to the next one?
Yeah. I mean, I remember that was built about 20 years ago. That was being built when I was involved in building the Northern Great Lakes Visitor Center. That was going on about the same time. Being promoted by the same people. There's people that promote this, knowing that we're going to get government money to build it, of course, and nobody ever looks at how it's going to be supported. And of course, it's not going to be self-supporting, but I'm wondering here, why do we? I haven't been in the Great Lakes Aquarium. I'm sorry, I'm sure it's a great spot and all that kind of stuff, but I'm just not going to go to it because of all the bad stuff that I've heard about it, and it just seems to be kind of shady the way it was funded and stuff. Now, who is the? Am I correct here that the director now of Spirit Mountain used to be the director of the aquarium?
That I don't know. Dave, do you know?
I haven't heard for sure.
Okay, well, I won't use any names then, but I thought it was. One more director is making $125,000 a year, goes from one government entity over to another government entity.
Right.
And the Spirit Mountain takes what, 500,000 or 200,000 every year. Plus, I ski there a lot. I like Spirit Mountain. Don't get me wrong, I pay a lot too. It's
right.
not cheap to ski because I pay for it, and hey, they still got to take money. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I mean, Spirit Mountain, legitimately, you can look at as an attraction for people to come to Duluth, stay in Duluth. I don't know anybody that says, you know what, we're driving 2.5 hours because we want to go to that aquarium again. Yeah. Have you ever been to the aquarium, Art?
No, I have not.
Dave,
No.
have you?
No.
I have never either. And we're people that live in Duluth. It may be a great place, but I don't know. It's just strikes me. And of course, it's Johnston and Kozlowski are doing this. It's for Duluth. I wouldn't expect anybody else to do it, but at the same time, is this the thing that we need to be worried about right now? I don't know.
Maybe just expand a little bit on that, Sean, before we go. Is that this is? I'm assuming there's a lot of tourists go there. I mean, I'm assuming that. Let's hope there is.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, this was built for tourists. It was not built for people to live in Duluth. We know that. This is only built to attract tourist dollars. And it is one attraction. You can go over and look at Canal Park,
Sure.
The bridge, and the fantastic Corps of Engineers Museum. And then you can walk across a cute little bridge and make your way down to the aquarium. And that's all nice. I mean, I don't begrudge anybody. It's not a bad idea, but
it's not a bad idea if it could sustain itself.
And why should us taxpayers have to support it? Because
exactly,
I know nobody that's been to the aquarium that's lived in Duluth. I really know nobody. And
no, I think that's exactly the point. I don't have anything against it. It's fine if it could be, it could fund itself. That's great. But why are we doing it as taxpayers? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'll say one more thing, as we all know, makes me irritated when I look at my taxes. Goes to the city and the county, of course, and the school. But every time I see that, and I see these things that have never benefited us in Duluth, and I pay an outrageous amount of taxes, and everybody should be revolting against their taxes to stop this.
Well, if that makes you mad, let's go on to number 2. HF 1602.
I want to sleep tonight.
HF 1602 by Kozlowski. Latino Economic Development Center grant, funding provided and money appropriated, $2 million for a Latino Economic Development Center. So a purely racist, based on one race only, giving money so that they can be given funds to do things. It doesn't make any sense to me. If you want to do something like that, set up a charity. If you want to have a Latino development center, great, go get money for it. You're not supposed to be doing this through tax dollars. $2 million. $2 million.
This is a typical look. I'm a victim. Back to the original thesis: is I'm a victim. Give us money.
It's almost more like, okay, how can I get money? It's not victimhood. It's just driving in. How can I get this lucrative tax money? It seems to go to everybody. And what's my angle? My angle is my race. I'll do it that way. And of course, Kozlowski is doing it because Kozlowski does bills based on her race, her gender, her whatever it is, two-spirit status. Almost every one of her bills, unless it's a knock out of the park, like it's a no-brainer, Kozlowski and Johnston doing the Great Lakes Aquarium, that's just a simple one. But if you go deeper into anything else she does, it's that one. Here's another one, HF 1549, American Indian drumming in public schools allowed. And the bill says, it's a very short bill, but part of it says this, in quote, if requested by the school's American Indian Parent Committee or an American Indian student organization, a school district or charter school must allow American Indian drumming at a graduation ceremony. Mandating it from the state. It's unbelievable to me that she does these kind of bills and people stand for this.
Well, the big question on this one is, isn't a drumming ceremony a religious ceremony?
Yeah, I think so.
As far as I know, it's religion. If it's religion, then that has to be separation of church and state. Therefore, it can't be allowed unless they're going to do the drumming right after they say the Lord's Prayer.
It's silly that you can't. This is something you should be able to do on your own. It could be at your private ceremony. It could be at your party. I don't mind them. I mean, I like the drum ceremonies myself, but mandating it is ridiculous to me at a state level.
Well, what's the problem? What is this trying to address? Now, I've been to many graduations, of course. I'm sure you have, and many other civic functions, and there's always seems to be drumming going on, and I think that's kind of cool. I like it. I mean, the school board wants to invite them, and I've never seen anybody that said no. And I think it's a cool thing. But to mandate it, I mean, this is a solution looking for a problem. There's
exactly
a problem out there.
Right.
People are very interested and proud of our neighbors that are Native Americans and their culture, and that's always and they've never had a problem getting their drumming going, and it's kind of cool. Getting back to the other thing, it's like Kozlowski. I mean, I think that's a Latino thing. I mean, that I would think that that's illegal. I mean, with the U.S. Supreme Court rulings,
yes,
you cannot give somebody extra stuff based on their race.
Right.
I mean, that isn't possible. And I don't see why that would be done anyway. Well, now here I'll be really politically incorrect, I guess. The old words of that. I look at all the pictures of all the legislators, and I see a leash. A leash. Oh, excuse me, a yellow cloud. And I see her picture. She looks like everybody else. Because why? Because she's a human being. And it's like, okay, if she has all these things, she's Native American, supposedly. She's some kind of Latino, supposedly, and her name, it sounds like a Polish or Ukrainian name. I mean, it's like, okay, there must be something else in there too. So
I think that might be her married name. When she was married, I think that's when she was married. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway, she looks like the rest of us.
She is like the rest of us. However, your limited brain can't comprehend the massiveness, which is.
Yes, I must go to reprogramming school.
All right, let's go on here. I'm just wondering if we're going to have that Irish line dancing, if that's required too. I mean, isn't that the one where they don't move their arms and they just dance with their leg? What is that called?
River
What is
Dance.
it?
Well,
Riverdance.
well,
Yeah, we're gonna have Riverdance if they request it, and you know.
wait a minute now. Now, it's time we started having Trump dances.
Okay. Oh my gosh. All right. HF 1389, state-owned land in the Cloquet Forestry Center transferred to the University of Minnesota. Defeasance of outstanding debt on certain state bond finance property funding provided and money appropriated, 1.3 million. So giving yet more property to the university, not getting taxes on it, not getting the delinquent taxes on it. Why don't we just sell it? It's state-owned property.
Well, it's funny you brought this up, Sean, because I just got back from there. I spent all day there on a seminar, and it's kind of a nice spot. But everything I seen, it was all university owned already.
Yeah, well, there you
Every
go.
place I seen was all pictures of what the university's doing and forestry here. I mean, it was all cool, and I didn't have any problem with any of that. So, what's this money changing hands for? It's already a university. Big signs up there. It's the University of Minnesota Forestry Center. And I don't know all the details. I'm speaking on a line, of course. But hey, who's getting this money?
Sorry, that was toxic. I apologize. Yeah, I mean, and just building this university more and more and more, the more money, it just sucks down where really we don't need it. I mean, we have technology now that these massive university systems aren't as needed as they used to be. And we need to pare that down and get some of this funding back because the state of Minnesota funds a lot of that. And that's just tax money. Now, let me just sidebar into one small thing I found out about the budget a long time ago. The University of Minnesota proposed a budget to the state at one point, and let's say the budget was $100, and they were asking for $120 now, and the state said, no, you're going to get $110, so more than you were getting, but less than you wanted. And they went and cried foul, and all the news organizations were talking about how the state was slashing their budget, when in fact they had actually increased their budget, just not by the amount that they wanted. And that's how the media and the universities twist things when it comes to the budget.
Well, Sean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. I worked for the feds for 20 years, and I was a union budget guy. And what that speaks to us is ignorance by the media. First of all, anybody that would print that's journalist malpractice, and it's done time and time and time and time again. Any agency, government agency, okay, they get a thing in their budget. This is how much money they want, and okay, they want $120. Ooh, but they only had 100 last year. And then the media says, "Oh my God, you cut $10 million." Oh, wait a minute. No, they did not. Just look at the budget, look at the history of the budget, and could something like the Duluth News Tribune actually do any kind of research on when they print a story? That's asking too much, I know, particularly when it comes to government budget. It is notorious. It's been that way forever. And why the idiot newspaper like the Duluth News Tribune can't figure that out? They're part of it.
Right.
And so it's hard to stop it when you get the media still harping on about that kind of garbage.
Right. Dave, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the ISD 709 that had the two referendums back to back because they were claiming the $5 million budget cut when it was just they lost the COVID money.
Right, that's true.
And they knew they were going to lose that COVID money, but they didn't. At no time did they think ahead or plan ahead, saying, "Well, we're going to lose this money. We better not make it permanent jobs." But they made it permanent jobs, and then they had to cut people because they weren't paying attention to what the money was actually for.
Right. All right, two more. These are pretty sparse, but number one is HF 1385, statewide tenant education and hotline service funding provided and money appropriated. And literally, it has a $ with question marks on it. They don't even know how much it's going to cost. But you know what? A tenant education hotline service. So I think it's for people that live in apartment complexes and stuff.
Tenant?
So they get
tenant like people that live tenant like in a renter.
yes, exactly.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know why the state of Minnesota is creating a hotline for that. And I certainly question the $ with question marks after it. I'm hoping that's just a glitch on their system and they actually know how much they're going to appropriate for this, or if it's just a blank check. You know, it's like working with a contractor. Just write me a check. I'll fill in the amount later. The last one is HF 1535, Duluth Children's Museum funding provided, money appropriated. I didn't even know there was a Duluth Children's Museum, and I really don't know what it is, but $1.7 million for a Duluth Children's Museum. Again, it's just an ongoing pouring of money. It's death by 1,000 cuts when it comes to the state and the city and how much they charge for things where it's non-essential. And if it's non-essential, you should have somebody coming up with an idea of how to get the money as opposed to making us pay for it. As good as an idea as it may be. All right. Do you guys have anything else for Duluth before we move on to Minnesota topics?
No, we pretty much covered everything.
In only 51 minutes.
Yep.
All right, we'll get through as many as we can here, Art, before you have to take off.
Well,
all
I
right.
could probably stay longer here, but it's haven't eaten supper yet, so it's.
Oh, okay. Well, if you start getting hangry, well, you can go.
How about bringing a meal here and you kind of watch me shovel food in my mouth here?
You can always shut your camera off, and then you can eat.
Wait a minute now. We're trying to be popular with people here. We want people to watch us, and I think if people want to watch MSNBC, won't they want to watch us eating food?
Yeah, for sure.
It would be the latest tip.
It's not the worst thing people have done on camera, especially at CNN.
The next broadcast, when Sean gets back into town, will be from a bar. Definitely, we'll find a bar that'll take us.
Eating nachos and doing our show.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'll move on to Minnesota State news, and Dave, I already changed the banner, so I'm ahead of you here. Let's see. He called Minnesota or voters Republicans Nazis, and I'm going to try to bring up the site here. And this always takes me a second, so talks amongst yourselves. Let's see.
And how did he? What made him think Republicans are Nazis? Because we want less government? Is that what Hitler wanted? He wanted a small, non-conforming government. If you
yes,
if you sat down and looked at what Adolf did, and just strictly looked at his left or right, he was a leftist because he wanted. He believed that religion should run the country, and only certain people should run the country. That's a leftist idea of communism. If you're going past what the typical Democrat is and get into the left versus the right, Hitler was very left. Even farther than what we have nowadays. So being called Walz is more of a Hitler than he even believes.
Okay, so let's listen to it here.
I can't hear anything.
Not getting anything on this side.
So that's our governor right now.
We couldn't hear it, Sean.
Nothing came through.
You didn't hear it? Oh, you should have raised your hand. Sorry. I thought that was coming through.
Well, I tried to speak back. I figured someone was coming through in your end, but you couldn't hear us speak. So.
Damn it. I'll get these technical glitches taken care of one of these days here. Well, so what he said was, what he
Go ahead.
said was the country is being taken over by fascists and Nazis, and that's the problem. So he said people are asking what's wrong with the Democratic Party. What's wrong is our country is being stole by fascists and Nazis in true toxic masculinity Tim Walz fashion, meaning he was having a hissy fit when he said it. So this was at a town hall meeting he was doing, and it's just he is just. I just want a governor who's not an embarrassment. I swear. But I do know this, and Dave sent me this. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going
Art.
to say, how can anybody in our society nowadays get by with calling people Nazis? I mean, that is, to me, it is just so unbelievably stupid and unacceptable and nasty and ugly. And it's just unacceptable, period. And, and of course, we heard that against Trump, which is why he got elected. People got tired of that garbage. People don't want to hear this garbage, and because it's just garbage. And it's like, could Tim Walz just stop it and just how about having a rational discussion? Yeah, he may disagree with us on politics, and that's his right. But he doesn't have a right to go out and call people's names. And we don't have a right to call people's names either. And we can kind of wonder why there's some names there, like say Two Spirit or something. But it's not right to make up and call somebody a Nazi. Nazi is a very derogatory term, which is kind of the bottom level the bad you can think of somebody is calling them a Nazi. And
I did call him an idiot.
We're all Republicans, and we're not. None of us are bad people. And,
no, I did call him an idiot, so I do give him that label. So that's my name for him.
Well, okay. Well, that's not as bad as a Nazi.
Not as bad as a Nazi, no. Yeah, the quote's not there. We do know that Walz will not be seeking the Senate race, Senate seat that is being cleared out by Tina Smith. So, but he has not ruled out a third term governor run, which that could be a real interesting run for him. Seeing how resoundingly beaten up he was during the presidential election and how finally Minnesotans got to actually see what he was like because our local media and our state media doesn't cover it. Now, when he got into the national spotlight, they actually started bringing up stuff he's been doing for the first time for a lot of people to see. So he wasn't just, good old Elmer Fudd anymore. He was somebody who spent a lot of time in China every year. He has some questionable grooming practices when he was a teacher. Not really any experience doing any kind of leadership roles, and it was very apparent when he was in his debates and when he was on the stage that he really struggles to figure out what to do. Dave, what do you think about this upcoming event?
Well, yeah, I believe that's a next year problem, but still, he's been caught with more fraud than basically any governor in this state, if not the nation. He's failed at everything he's done. Like you said, the national media exposed him for taking tax-funded trips to China. Even his honeymoon, the Minnesota taxpayers paid for his honeymoon to China.
They did.
Now the federal media has finally exposed the way he actually is, and that he is not competent to run the state, much less vice president, much less the Scouts of America,
or the local 7-Eleven.
Or I definitely don't want to see him at the Portland Malt Shop. The profits would be gone there. So.
Art, what do you think? You think he should run for governor again? Well, I hope he doesn't. I mean, the guy, unfortunately, he's been somewhat successful pushing his agenda in Minnesota, and it is very sad. So I hope the hell he doesn't run again. But when I kind of look at this, I think it's a good indication of what we were talking about is that in Minnesota, Walz has never been criticized at all. The media has nothing but putting him up on a pedestal for 8 years. As soon as he got in the national spotlight, suddenly there were some other journalists out there that weren't in bed with the Minnesota media and that can actually have some independent thought. And yeah, what came out about him was pretty appalling, like all his China connections and everything. And
Yeah.
why did the Minnesota media do that? The Minneapolis Star and Tribune, and of course our good old friendly Duluth News Tribune. They aren't going to do anything. They're just going to put him up on a pedestal and say, "Oh, we got to elect him." Don't ask me why. Just let's just do it. And
I don't know, Art. If I didn't know better, I'd think you don't like the Duluth News Tribune as much as everybody else does. That could just be me. I get those vibes sometimes, but
yeah, well, sorry, I don't mean to upset your program and all your listeners. I know they're going to all say and how much they like the Duluth News Tribune. That's why they hardly publish it anymore.
And then Dave sent me a link about the new Minnesota House Speaker who denounces the record fraud under Walz. I just don't see how he thinks that running again is going to work. But then again, he was the governor in charge when we had the Floyd protests, and they didn't do anything about that. And the mayor of Minneapolis won again. So I guess anything's possible.
Yeah.
He also turned our $17 billion surplus into a $5 billion deficit.
Yeah, he had a lot of help from the Minnesota House for that too.
Yeah, so he's if you look at his record, he should be embarrassed to run again.
Right. Well, he was not interested in taking out any fraud until it turned out that the Republicans may have gotten control of either the House or Senate or both. Then all of a sudden he suddenly became interested in fraud. Until then it was don't care.
Right.
Well, I mean, this is just indicative, like we talked about the feeding our future, $250 million, and that went right through the Department of Education right under Tim Walz. And we got to remember, what do the Democrats do? They want money to come to government so they can push that money over to their cronies and the NGOs, and that's exactly what happened. And I'm very surprised that anybody found out about it even, but
Right.
I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg. 250, kind of scary to think that 250 million is the tip of the fraud iceberg in Minnesota.
Right.
I have no doubt that it is.
Oh, it's more like 650 million, I think they found in the last couple of years. And that's the top ones. That's not all of it.
Right.
Oh, you're talking about just feeding our future?
Feeding our future is just 250 million, but if you talk about some of the other ones too, we're over at 650 million.
Oh, boy.
Dave sent me another great link, and we talked about this last week. You were on the show. Was with no customer base, North Star commuter rail boondoggle could be shuttered. So this is a light rail system in the Twin Cities that goes up north, and they've been pushing this since I lived down there, and now they're thinking about just scrapping it because they just don't have the riders. And this comes into play again when we talk about this light rail going from Minneapolis to Duluth and how it's going to pay for itself and how much it's actually going to cost. So we covered that ad nauseum last week, but still, I think the price tag right now is $1 billion, and I wouldn't be surprised if it gets completed, it would be more like 18 billion. That would be my guess.
And that's why I said it, because it was so relevant to the train that they want to send to Duluth, because their St. Cloud area has got more people than the Duluth area does now.
Yeah, and that drives horrible from the cities to St. Cloud.
And that can't sustain itself to the point where it's, it was over budget. It was no one rode it. It's not sustainable. The maintenance was too high. Everything was budgeted wrong. So they're throwing it away. So let's not even start with the Duluth one.
Right.
Well, I don't have the details here, but I'm sure you've read about it, about the train out in California. They've been building for the last 20 years, and that went from $2 billion up to $60 billion, and they haven't even built 1 mile of track. It's like, huh? I mean, mean, people should really have some skepticism toward government's ability to do these things because it doesn't have the ability to do it.
And if it was a good idea, if it was a money-making idea, a business would have done it. The tracks are already there.
Yeah.
So if a business isn't going to be doing it, the state has no business doing it themselves because it's just not worth it. When you've got easy access, cheap access to busing system, to a transit system we've already built, it makes no sense to me to have this until a business runs it. If a business runs it, I'd probably take it. But I don't want to have to pay for it, especially I don't want to have to pay for the ongoing costs of it, especially when we've seen a lot of this money that we appropriate for these things, about maybe 50% actually goes to the project and the other 50% goes into the vapor.
And it goes into examples. We've already mentioned the aquarium.
Yes, exactly.
Mountain. I mean, none of these things are bad, but why is the government doing it? I mean, the government's
Exactly.
not able to do things. I'll say again, the Democratic governments, they think their function is to take money from us and throw it out at their cronies. If it's
Right.
engineering firms, and I'm an engineer, so I know all about it, or anybody else, this money is not ever wisely spent. I would say absolutely never is government money wisely spent.
Yep. I want to talk about something else here, kind of a changing of the gears. And Art, let me know if you have to go. Just give me the hand signal or something. What's that?
Go ahead. I'll keep on for a while. This is kind of
all right. All right, good. There was a bunch of protesters outside the Stauber office in Hermantown, and I watched the news article and I was listening to them, and then they sent out this thing that was talking about how Stauber should be resisting Trump and what he's been doing with the federal government. And then some of the reasoning was because Trump had pardoned 1,500 rioters who illegally broke into the Capitol. President Trump pardoned these criminals, many of whom had pled guilty to or were found guilty by juries of their peers of their crimes. And they never mentioned what the crimes were, but the crimes are trespassing, right? Not insurrection. They said 600 had violently assaulted police officers, 2 of them using a deadly or dangerous weapon. Now, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think there's any weapons in the Capitol except for the security guard who shot an unarmed protester.
And killed her.
And killed her, an unarmed veteran woman protester.
Right.
And then they go on to talk about how Elon Musk and a gang of computer hackers. Now, I am a computer software consultant. I don't take a little offense to that. Actually, I don't. I don't care. You can call me that if you want. And so Elon Musk and his hacker gang are private citizens without the authority or security clearance to have access to the secret data, and their ability to cut off payments from the U.S. Treasury is beyond alarming. So, couple things. They have read-only access to the systems. And the other thing is, what makes the people who have Elon Musk has security clearance, by the way, and he was given it to it by Joe Biden, not by Donald Trump. So he has security clearance. But is your problem that he's got access to the data? My problem is they have access, or they have all this secret data. What is this secret data? Who does have access to see it?
Right.
What I don't know any of the people that work for the government. They have access to it. So why is he so special that he shouldn't have access to it? You know what I mean? Art, what do you think?
All I can say is that thank God that somebody's looking at the government. I mean, I've been in the government for way too many years, and it has to be looked at. Hey, we could talk for another couple hours about all the graft and corruption that I knew when I was working for them. And if Elon Musk, and I don't care who he's got there, the only question I've got is why didn't anybody find this stuff out 20 years ago?
Yeah, well, they knew it. They just didn't expose it.
Well, maybe so, but no. Let's hope somebody does know. And the protesters, yeah. Well, hey, they're gonna, I'm assuming that's all the DSA people, and they can go on their website and you can see all the garbage that they do, and they all support Hamas, and they support the end of mining. They support the end of electrical production in the U.S. And these people, I don't know why they have any credibility whatsoever in Duluth. Is kind of sad. Hopefully they don't.
Yeah. Dave, what
They
do you
don't know
think?
what.
Dave, you're
What
talking
was
to
I
a computer hacker here. So what do you think?
Well, I go back to the year that Obama got elected. I think that was 2008. Because I remember the people protesting the war when George W. 43 Bush was in office, and the day that uh, Obama got elected, the protesters stopped. The war was going on still. They were protesting the war, but the protests had stopped.
Yeah.
So they weren't protesting the war. They were protesting the fact that a Democrat wasn't in power.
Yeah.
If you replaced Stauber with a Democrat, there would be no protests.
Right. It would be nice too. Wouldn't it be nice if the news organization that was there would have just asked a simple question? Everybody here who voted for Pete Stauber, raise your hand.
Right.
None of them would raise their hand. And they're like, well, of course you don't like what he's doing. But, I know he's your senator. I mean, it makes sense. You want him to do something, but you're sitting out here. He's not even in this office. You're just doing this for spectacle. You're not doing this to make an actual impact, right?
And this was the part of this is where Trump derangement syndrome and Elon Musk derangement system are combined, because they're actually getting rid of waste, which everyone has been talking about for centuries. Now
Yeah.
they're doing it, and now they need something to complain about. I've seen it on Facebook 1,000 times. Is you want this stuff done, but because a Democrat isn't doing it, a Republican is doing it, then it's bad.
Yeah.
Because the Democrats just voted against the bill to not tax overtime, to not tax Social Security, and they voted against it. Like
All of them.
all of them
100%.
did. Yeah, except that was part of their campaign promise. They were going to vote for it.
Well, let me just tie back to this Stauber thing 1 second. So honest to God, I was door knocking because I was running for Minnesota House last year. I door knocked on one of my neighbor's doors, actually. And he said, let me ask you a question. What are you going to do about Pete Stauber? You going to stand up to him? I'm like, and honestly, at the time, I hadn't really read much about Pete Stauber. I'm not sure what Pete's all about. Then he dressed me down for not knowing. I'm supposed to know every single Republican there is and how I'm going to counteract him as a Republican candidate. I thought that was the most bizarre position to take when you're saying, I'm running for Minnesota House, and your response is, what are you going to do about the Minnesota senator? Not my job. That's the same kind of, I'm sure that guy was at this protest. We almost guarantee it. Him and 15 other people. Go ahead,
if I could chime in here, is that these people have a right to have their opinion, of course, and I don't begrudge that. I probably know all the people that were at this protest, and these people. I will go on a limb. These people are very self-centered, very narcissistic. They think their views are the only valid view in the world. They do not comprehend that anybody could think differently from them. They want to take their point of view and force their point of view on everybody else. Like the rest of us, we all work. We all do the best job we can. I think I walked in a picket line once as a union guy, I think, for a while. I tried to protest the war in Vietnam, and that was a disaster because I couldn't stand yelling and screaming and shouting in everybody's face. But these people, they seem to get something out of this, and I don't, they have a right to do it as long as they're not destroying property. But they do have to be civil, and I know we can't force people to tell the truth or even know the truth. But there should be some effort to have some truth saying in there too, and there obviously wasn't from the stuff that you read.
Yeah, it's kind of the talking points, and I've seen this quite a bit. It's to evoke as much emotion and as much sympathy and outrage as they possibly can, and they just keep saying words until it hits. And I actually know people that works on. I talk to them a lot, and the way I defeat their arguments typically is saying, well, why is that? Or what do you mean by that? As soon as you go a layer deep below their argument, they can't support it. I respect people that have different opinions than me and can support it. And if you have a different opinion than me, I'll bet you I can argue your point as good as you can argue mine if I really believe in it. And that's what we need people to do, is be able to sit down and look at the other side and see what would the argument be against my point. If you do that, you can have intelligent conversations with people. And I've been praised before by people that were on very left side, because I don't try to argue their point and tell them they're wrong. I just try to understand it. So if you try to understand what people think, then you can get a better understanding where they're coming from. And I'll tie this all the way back to the Skyway thing. I originally thought that there was an outside influence that wanted the Skyway system to be changed here, but it turns out that wasn't true. So good. It's good to know the impetus behind it. There isn't really an agenda here. It's just to make sure that we have the best Skyway system possible. So I appreciate that. That's good. All right. Let's see. One more thing for Minnesota. There's a Senate bill, the medical debt relief. So here is something that on the surface, you look at it and you go, yeah, people shouldn't have to go broke paying their medical bills, right? So this is a bill proposed by Liz Bolden, and it would set aside $5 million that would be used to purchase, then forgive around $500 million in outstanding medical debt for hundreds of thousands of Minnesotans. So yeah, it's great. I mean, like I said, people shouldn't have to go into debt because they have a medical incident or a medical problem. It just comes down to, is this the right thing for the legislature to legislate on? Is it the right thing for all the Minnesotans to have pay for? And does it fix the root problem, which is medical costs skyrocketing out of control? So I'll bring this up. Thoughts, boys. What do you think? Dave, what do you think?
Well, this has been Biden already. What he did was Biden put into law that they can't report medical debt on your credit report. Therefore, if you do have medical debt, you can still buy a house because it won't affect your credit score. So you'll still be able to buy a house even if you have debt. But the one thing about Obamacare was one of the complaints was that it was rising costs for everybody. And that's why they were complaining about lack of funding for, very rural hospitals. Well, we're slowly starting to run into that where they can't have hospital services into the rural places. Mm-hmm. So we're in another part of it where the hospital debt is too expensive. It's extremely expensive for people to even get into. My dad is 91. Last year, he racked up over almost $1 million in medical procedures. Wow. And that was a week and a half in the hospital. So
that's crazy.
Over the year, his Medicare obviously didn't pay for all of it, but it was, why is it so expensive? Mm-hmm. And that's what Obamacare did. The Democrats seen a problem, tried to fix it, but they didn't know how to fix it. So now we're back to the government has to fix a problem that they created.
It's true.
And if that didn't happen, we would if that wasn't the problem, the government wouldn't have to fix their original problem.
Right. Art, what do you think?
First, I'd like to get some kind of real documentation, not government documentation, but real documentation on how many people's lives have been ruined because of medical debts. I'm sure there's some, but I'd like to really know how big a problem this is. What is their present state now? I think I've known some people that have had debts, and it seems like they always find some way to get out of that. Declare bankruptcy, whatever. So I'd like to find out, is this really a problem or not? another aspect of this is that, yeah, I don't know why all medical stuff is so expensive, but isn't this a direct benefit? The biggest people this is going to benefit is the medical profession. Because some of these people, they're never going to pay their debts. I mean, they aren't going to do that. Most of them probably are, on welfare anyway.
Right.
So this is going to be, to me, it's the hospitals or the medical profession is going to be jumping up and down for joy for that one, I think. And yeah, I think it's one of those things. Dave, you said it good. The government's bailing out or paying for the problems that they already caused. That's kind of sad. It's like, is it ever going to end?
The
Right.
cause of and solution to all of our problems, just like
Yeah,
alcohol.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, say, Sean, before you go from state, let me know when we're done with this topic. I got one to bring up.
We're done. We're just about to
Oh,
move on to national, so bring one on.
I'll just bring up the recall petitions that are going on. I was on a call for the Republicans tonight, and people don't know. Hopefully, people are watching this. I think you guys were too. Part of the recall, there've been 29 petitions handed in to the Supreme Court. That's going to go over to the Attorney Generals, and then that's going to have to go back to the court to determine whether or not these are valid. What we've done as Republicans, the party, is that we're accusing Pete Johnston, Alicia Kozlowski, our representatives, of using malfeasance and nonfeasance by not showing up for over 3 weeks and refusing to participate in government. And so that's what the petition is going on. There's 67 DFL people that didn't show up for work. And we've got over 40 petitions ready to hand, and we haven't handed them all yet. We're waiting to see how the court system handles them. The negative thing is that recall petitions are very difficult in Minnesota, in the Minnesota Constitution. You can't just recall somebody because you don't like them or because they made a bad vote. You have to be able to prove malfeasance or nonfeasance, and it's apparently has never happened before. But this is probably the most massive recall effort we've done. It did get the DFL finally back to work and doing legislation, and so I just wanted to give you an update on that. That's going on, and I've seen people in the Republican Party now that are moving on this that really have never been too participatory in the past, and people are kind of angry out there, and I hope something happens on this. It's we don't know if we can get this. We don't obviously. Pete Johnson and Alicia Kozlowski, they're part of the DFL machine in Duluth, and the machine always wins in Duluth. We know that. But
this isn't Duluth thing. This is the Supreme Court thing right now.
Yeah, it's in the Supreme Court now. Well, just in the Supreme Court to decide whether or not the petitions are valid.
So
then once they declare us valid, which we don't know if they will, then we have to come back and collect 5,000 signatures to have a recall vote. So it's a long process, but it's been really good. The Republicans have finally stood up to nepotism in the state of Minnesota. In the last two House cycles, they had one vote, and they thought they could push their views on everybody else.
right.
And so Republicans finally are fighting back a little bit, and and just saying that, hey, we're here too. Maybe we're only 49.5 and you're 50.5, but you can't just throw us out the window under the bus and
Right.
pretend we don't even be here. It's the whole tyranny of the majority. Is certainly a horrible case, and that's what the DFL is doing in Minnesota, or did. Now we've got them stopped for a little while.
Right. And and you said something here. It's hard to do, and that's a good thing. I think it should be hard to recall somebody. That's the way it's built. The problem is that on a 2-year election cycle, it takes almost a year from start to finish to remove somebody, and by that time you're already into the election cycle for the next time. But I think it should be hard. I don't know if a year is the right timing, but That's good. But you talked about malfeasance and nonfeasance. Can you go through and define what that is and then how that applies to this?
Not real well because I'm not a lawyer. But I'll try it here. Malfeasance is when when you do things that are illegal. I think that's what malfeasance is. You embezzle money. You break the law. You're uh,
And that was the swearing in ceremony, I believe they did before the actual one, right? That's part of it.
that's part of it, I think. But that's another part of the petitions is that was illegal. But the malfeasance, the nonfeasance is that because they just did not show up for work.
That's the nonfeasance, right?
Yeah, the nonfeasance, they didn't do anything. They did not do their job. And yeah, I guess you're right. The malfeasance would be when they took the oath 2 days before they
Right.
were supposed to. And is that legitimate? There's a question on that.
But you have to prove both to do this recall, right? You have to prove both malfeasance and nonfeasance.
I know
So
it could be just one. It doesn't have to be both. It has to be whichever one has to go. I mean, any lawsuit, they usually throw everything there and hope something will stick. That's the way lawyers are. So
now,
we're going to both malfeasance and nonfeasance, hoping that the Supreme Court may throw out the one, may throw out malfeasance, and but keep the nonfeasance.
okay.
So we don't know what they're going to do. It's a Supreme Court that is 100% liberals, and so they probably
Yeah.
aren't too anxious to do anything correct. But we'll see. The main thing that that I've been involved in it a little bit, of course, is that we finally stood up for the DFL and said, "Hey, you just can't do
Yeah.
this anymore." We know that in Duluth, of course, Pete Johnston and Alicia Kozlowski, they're going to win because the political machine is so tight and so corrupt in Duluth. We all know that. I used to be part of the DFL, remember? And
Yeah.
so it's going to be tough to beat them, even if we were able to get 5,000 signatures. But we're doing it because it's given us good publicity. We're finally standing up for ourselves and saying enough is enough. Least you can do is come to work and admit that hey, you don't have a majority. You're going to have to share the House Speaker. And in that case, it was successful. We now have the Speaker. The Republicans going to be the Speaker of the House for the next 2 years. So we've already gained a lot from it, even if the court doesn't continue on with the recall.
It is nice seeing the Republicans standing up. I don't think you would have seen this 5 years ago.
No.
Okay.
Do you know when the court's going to take a look at it? Do you have a timeline on when the court's going to first look at this?
They're actually, I think it's, I didn't keep very good notes, or we had a call here. That's why I was on before I got to you here. After we got back to the Cloquet Forestry Center, I'm busy today. I think it's going to be in a couple of weeks. It's going to be actually sitting in the Supreme Court. We got to go through the Attorney General. Of course, Ellison, he will do everything that he can to throw rocks in it there. But we're doing this. We have a lot of people. We have a lot of petitions, and I think we've already been very successful and even won a lot because we got the Speaker of the House. So whether or not Ellison goes through and throws it out, whether the Supreme Court throws it out, we've already accomplished what we wanted to do, and hey, we're gonna keep doing it as much as we can just to show that these people are not participating. They're having a little tantrum and not going to come play anymore.
Right.
We call
You get elected for a job, you do the job.
Yeah, you got to
Even if you don't
compromise.
like it.
Yeah, and we're supposed to compromise with people and stuff, and we know that's not a good thing in politics nowadays. Not just in Minnesota, but everywhere. But in Minnesota, hey, they got to start compromising, and so far they have, and let's hope we can keep it going.
All right. Well, thank you for that update, Art. That's good stuff, and it's one of the things we want to do on this podcast is bring up stuff like that and talk about it because I'm not seeing a whole lot happening in the local news about that kind of stuff at all.
Sorry, I don't mean to complain about the Duluth News Tribune, but I'm set up, okay, Sean and Dave, just put a mask on. I love the Duluth News Tribune. How's that?
Yeah, we're going to edit this, and that's all you're going to be saying the whole time. It may sound suspiciously like Dave's voice, but that's what you're going to be saying. All right, I think that wraps up anything for Minnesota. You guys got anything else for me?
Not this time.
You know, we're already an hour and a half into this stream, so I'm kind of amazed. This is the longest we've ever gone. We haven't got to national news, and national news is like drinking out of a fire hydrant. There's so much happening.
Well, how long do you go here, Sean? I mean, to go on here, I mean, you can't stay forever. It is kind of fun, but you know, I don't know. Maybe we should save the rest till next time. We should start on the national news next time.
Yeah, I only have a very couple things to do. In fact, you know, maybe we're just going to bring up one thing that Dave sent me, which is the list of cabinet members that Trump has gotten through now, or what's going on. So we've got this list of nominations, the dates of the hearings, received, confirmed, and the vote numbers. And so we only got two left. Is that right?
Well, I think there's more, but that's just
of the big ones. These are the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Secretary of Education, I thought Linda McMahon was already confirmed, so they haven't done that yet, huh?
No, they got her through the first house, so she passed the first vote.
Okay. Everything is, well, most of them are really close. Those are the ones I trust. This one at 99-0, I know I like what Marco Rubio's been doing, but 99-0, holy cow! I was just like amazed. There's usually somebody that dissents.
Maybe it's a typo.
You know, that was the actual truth. These I like a lot better. 51-50. That one makes me feel like he's probably going to do a really good job. And I like everything I've heard about Pete so far.
Who's that?
Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense.
Yeah.
And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is going to be doing as Secretary of Health and Human Services. I'm holding out a lot of hope for him based on what he said about making people healthy again, which is something that I think we've lost track of in this country. Certainly is different from when I was a kid, where it seemed like everybody was just harping on you to be thin and healthy and physically fit, and it's just 180 to fat acceptance videos, and people just, accept who you are. No, always try to improve. Everybody can improve something. Any thoughts on any of these guys, Dave?
No, I thought it was interesting just to see where we're at, though. Just, give people an update of, what's going on, what's left. And so I thought that was a good summary of it.
Yeah. All right. I'm just going to kind of open it up. Any other kind of national news you guys want to go over? I had a couple things, but right now it's going to bring my mood down. I just have one thing at the end, but what do you guys got? Dave, you got anything?
No, I'm just I just have to laugh on the people online that are just, which I already mentioned before, is the Trump derangement system and the Elon derangement syndrome is, they're saving money. They haven't found any fraud because nobody's in jail yet, but they found just a massive amount of people throwing their money away and wasting it. And people online now all of a sudden upset that the government's not wasting money.
Oh, yeah, I was going to bring this up, and I'm glad you did, Dave. Isn't it amazing now you see these guys coming out and going, well, we can't not tax the tips. That'd be a huge budget deficit. That we can't afford that money. It's always when they get into a position where they're not in power, all of a sudden spending matters to them. Whereas every other time it's just like printing money, no problem. But the smallest little thing, if it's good for the American citizens, like taxing tips, how about we don't do that? I don't care what it costs to the budget. It's not that much. Taxing overtime, but there is a problem with that, though. But I do know the loop around for that already, though. is that guy comes to do some work on your house, right? And he does all the landscaping. Landscaping was $100, but I'm going to need a $10,000 tip.
Right.
So there is some loopholes that have to be talked about there, but for the most part, we're talking about like waiters and waitresses and people that are getting tips and they really need that money, and you're tipping them because it's gratuity. It's not because it's part of the service itself. So, but yeah, you're right, Dave. They just like, as soon as it comes down to them not being in charge, boy, the purse strings are lit. They couldn't afford a $5 billion price tag for a border wall back when Trump was in place the first time. And then they sent $200 billion to Ukraine because why not?
Right.
Let's see. Anything else, Art? You got anything for the national stuff?
I'll just throw a little bit out on the secretaries. I thought I've been pretty pleased the way things have happened. I wasn't sure about RFK if he was going to make it. I also like Tulsi Gabbard. She's always been and these people are not your typical Republicans, and I think, and they're clearly not part of the swamp. I mean, they went after Tulsi Gabbard. We can see, of course, how they went after RFK. And there's some things that both of them I don't like all their positions and everything.
Right.
But yet I think it's so good that the Republicans, for the first time ever, decided to hang together and actually get these people endorsed and or confirmed. And I think that's Trump has managed to do it. I've read somewhere that he's got more people confirmed now, the soonest than hardly anybody has in a long time. It's been really tough, and he's been pushing it. And the guy who's the Secretary of Defense, I always forget how to pronounce his name. I mean, he was an outsider. We need outsiders. We need people like Tulsi Gabbard, who they went after. We need people like RFK, who has the gumption to stand up and to say something. And I thought it was really nice. There's a lot about. Already said there's some things I don't agree with them, but to have somebody in there who's actually willing to say something, we get these people are outside of the government, and we need people outside the government that are going to take a fresh look at this. And we need people that are running the government that are elected, appointed by the people we elect. And we have to get rid of some of those deadwood bureaucrats we have in the government.
Yep.
And I hope that they can do it. I hope they hold together. I'm sure there's going to be some scandals. There always are. But I say it looks good so far, and keep hanging in there. And
every one of his nominees, I believe, is somebody they went after, which is a powerful thing. You say go after you as a government, they come after you in some way. You get a chip on your shoulder, and you really look hard at and you don't take it. You take it very seriously. These aren't people that have been coddled by the government their whole lives and just given this position. These are fighters in every one of these positions. So I'm really happy about that. Even Cocaine Mitch at McConnell is voting for him. And that's amazing. I don't think that guy knows what day of the week it is.
But look at
I think it's exciting. Of course, Trump is obviously the front one. They did everything. The Democrats did everything they could. Every nasty trick in the normally would think only happens in third world countries, and he's survived. And Tulsi Gabbard, RFK. I mean, they went after the Secretary of Defense. They even dug up stuff that his ex-wife said she never said, and it's like, it's just disgusting.
Yep.
I mean, it's like par for the course. What else are they going to throw up? We'll call everybody Nazis. Make up a bunch of stuff. Well, Tulsi Gabbard is the nasty person. We got to follow her wherever she flies, and we got people watching her. It's like, oh my God, this is supposed to be America. So, hey, thank you for getting some of these people in there, and I hope that they keep their independence and smartness. And I've learned how they've been treated so horribly by the Democrats and the rest of the swamp. I'll use the word swamp and the FBI and stuff.
Yeah, but look at the top 5 most competent people we have in the United States right now: Elon, Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, and who else was I thinking?
Pam Bondi.
No, JFK Jr. and Art were all
Oh, there we go.
Democrats,
That's right.
and now they're Republicans.
Yeah.
So Democrats shouldn't be arguing about anybody because now we have the five most competent people running the place.
You got it. I like it. All right, we're going to move on to our last segment here just for a couple seconds. Health and fitness. We want to bring this up every time because we believe that people should be out getting fit. I've run myself ragged the last 2 weeks, so I've been running almost every day. Right now, there's volcanic fog in the air, so my throat is really messed up, and I'm not running in it. But after today, I'll be out running again, but lifting. So I've been a good 6 out of 7 days a week of working out. How you been doing, Dave?
I've been pretty poor. Friday I went to the gym. It was a fiasco because it was so busy. And I've been working on my daughter's car every day since because it's been warm in Duluth. And I can't raise my arms above my head anymore because my body hurts. And but I haven't been to the gym to have some formal exercise. But working on the car every day has been my exercise.
That is good exercise. How about you, Art?
I just got back a week of skiing in Montana.
Nice.
And had lots of powder, and that's a very hard skiing and very hard on the legs. And of course, we're up at 7,000-8,000 feet, and that's high elevation. So hopefully, I got my red blood cell count went up a little bit for that week. Of course, back here, I've already been skiing on Spirit Mountain a few times, and that's my main activity in the wintertime is skiing. Also, it hasn't been much snow, so I still hike around a little bit. Right on behind Spirit Mountain, and we got an elevation here. It's good to get a little bit of elevation in there.
Oh, excellent. All right. Well, people, if you're watching this, please get out, do something. It doesn't have to be strenuous. It could just be walking. It could be sitting up. Do something to get your body moving. But I think on that, we're going to end the show. I want to thank you guys. Art, thanks for jumping on. Anytime you want to, just let us know. We'll send you a link to it. Dave, thanks for getting on. It's been a longer show than normal. We did have 3 viewers at one point live, which we still have one viewer right now. So, hey, everybody. And I think that's it. Any parting thoughts, Dave?
No, I think we've said enough for tonight.
Okay. Art?
It's fun. Thanks for inviting me. It's fun to be able to actually talk, and hopefully we'll keep freedom in Minnesota enough so we can keep talking.
All right. Well, I'm Sean.
I'm Dave.
Art, when I'm here.
All right. You guys have a good night, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.